Boys and girls, today we're going to read a story that goes with what you guys are learning about how can people care for animals. And this is a story called Two Bobbies. It's a true story of Hurricane Katrina, friendship, and does anybody know the genre it might be that you guys were learning about earlier today? Sophia. Right, nonfiction. What is the whole genre we just learned about this morning? What is it? Narrative nonfiction, exactly. Has anybody heard of hurricanes or Hurricane Katrina before? You guys know what it is?
I have. I read it.
So what is a hurricane? You forgot. What's a hurricane? Yeah, go.
It's like when there's floods, it's very bad weather, and it's very bad weather. A lot of
Right.
It's kind of like a tornado.
So Hurricane Katrina, exactly, that's right. Like a tornado over water, right? And it happens in tropical areas where the ocean is.
Like Hawaii.
Yes, the hurricanes can happen in Hawaii. This one happened in Louisiana. It says, neither Bobby the dog nor Bobcat has a tail, and some say that's what brought them together. No one knows for sure how they met. Perhaps their owner had a soft spot for pets with no tails, but the two Bobbies, as they now come to be known, were each exactly the friend the other needed at exactly the right time, and this is their story. The city of New Orleans on the mighty Mississippi is a place many people and pets call home. Jamming with jazz and dressing up fancy for Mardi Gras. It bustled with life day and night. But on August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina bore down on the city and everyone who lived there, including a wisp of a cat and one puppy. And see, like Lucas said, there's the strong winds and the rain and the streets flooded. Winds roared to 110 miles an hour. Rain pounded hard and fast. Strong winds pushed walls of water from the Gulf of Mexico into Lake Pontchartrain. Some of the levees holding back the lake gave way. Water poured into the city deeper and deeper. People who had stayed through the storm were finally forced to leave their homes. They had to say goodbye to everything they loved. Many were told they could not take their pets. Bobby and Bobcat were left behind. Bobby had been tethered with the length of a chain. Bobcat stayed by her side. Together, in the silent heat, they waited for help to come. Their food and water gone, Bobby finally broke free. She dragged along the broken train with Bobcat beside her. He's still got the chain on. In the early days after the hurricane, the two Bobbies tried to make their way around oily water littered with debris. After the waters receded, they traveled the buckled streets with no place to call home. It says, after the waters receded. Does anybody know what receded means? What do you think they mean? Right, like the gone. Anybody else? Melissa? Like the water went down. And the buckled streets, because they're all messed up from the water being soaked in the streets. Month after month passed as Bobby and Bobcat wandered the devastated city. Their days and nights were filled with danger. Packs of hungry, homeless dogs roamed the streets, fighting smaller animals for food. Were Bobby and Bobcat chased away from any scraps they might have found? With little food to eat or clean water to drink, Bobby's ribs began to show. Bobcat's brown sugar markings started to fade to a dull white. One day in January, 4 long months later, Bobby and Bobcat strayed onto a job site. A construction crew hammered and sawed, fixing up a motel damaged by the hurricane. A worker's dog rushed over to play with Bobby. The dog's owner, Rich, noticed Bobcat too. He saw how thin the two strays were and began feeding them. He trimmed Bobby's chain, leaving enough to jingle on the ground because Bobcat liked to follow it. But every time Rich tried to touch Bobcat, Bobby growled. After a week of caring for the two Bobbies, Rich got some bad news when his boss came to the job site. He had given permission for one dog, but not for two dogs and a cat. He said Bobby and Bobcat had to go. Why do you think Bobby growled when he tried to touch Bobcat? Why do you think? Right, maybe he thinks Rich was trying to hurt the cat. What do you think? It was his friend, right? He was protecting him. Rich was determined to take them to a safe place, but Bobby still growled whenever Rich got too near Bobcat. She would not let him pick up or even touch her friend. So Rich rattled a bowl full of kibble. Bobby followed the food to Rich's van, and Bobcat followed Bobby. Rich drove them to a temporary shelter that Best Friends Animal Society had set up in Celebration Station, a former video game arcade. The shelter was completely filled with homeless dogs and cats, but a volunteer welcomed them in, even naming them Bobby and Bobcat for their bobtails. They were placed in separate rooms. All night long, Bobby howled and barked. Bobcat paced back and forth. No one could sleep with Bobby making such a ruckus, so volunteers made a large pen for her and put Bobcat in a small carrier inside Bobby's new cage. Bobby lay in front of Bobcat and whimpered. The volunteers opened a small cage to see what would happen. The two Bobbies touched noses, together again at last. For the next few minutes, the volunteers studied Bobby and Bobcat. They noticed how Bobcat stayed close to Bobby. They saw how he walked with his neck stuck out and how he carefully lifted his paws, placing them down as if he were unsure of what he might step on. Someone waved a hand in front of Bobcat's face. Bobcat did not jump back. Another volunteer waved her hand. Bobcat didn't even blink. Everyone was stunned. Why do you think everyone was stunned? Why do you think Bobcat didn't blink when they put a hand in front of her face? Sarah.
Because it's hard to not blink when someone puts a hand in front of your face.
Bobcat didn't blink when they put the hand in her face. Why do you think that? Sophia, no? You can't see. Bobcat was blind. All that time on their own, Bobby had been Bobcat's seeing eye dog. Remember with the chain hitting the ground? Bobcat was listening as he was following Bobby. The volunteers and even an ace pet detective searched for their family, with no success. 1 month later, Celebration Station closed its doors, but Bobby and Bobcat still did not have a home. There was only one thing left to try. What do you think they tried? What do you think?
They tried to find an owner to get both of them.
Okay.
Try to find a trailer.
A trailer? Why do you think they tried to find a trailer? Maybe. The two Bobbies made a television appearance on CNN's Anderson Cooper 360. And the very next day, the Best Friends volunteers left New Orleans. One of them drove Bobby and Bobcat to the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Utah, where they would stay until a new family could be found. They were on their way west when the news came in. Hundreds of people wanted to adopt them. It would take a very special family to adopt them together. The volunteers made a list and invited everyone on it to come and meet the two Bobbies. Only Melinda and her Boston Terrier Gus Gus made the long trip to Utah. That night, Bobby and Bobcat had a sleepover with Melinda and Gus Gus in one of the cottages on the sanctuary grounds. Would the two Bobbies choose Melinda? The next morning, everyone knew the answer. Bobby and Bobcat were stuck to Melinda like Velcro. They also liked Gus Gus and he liked them. Finally, Bobby and Bobcat had found their new family. Now they live with Melinda, Gus Gus, and Amelia on a ranch in southern Oregon. Bobcat has a window seat to sit in. He likes to play with the robot vacuum cleaner. He turns it on all by himself. Bobby helps with the ranch chores. She goes along on horse rides. On hot days, she lounges in the frog and fairy pond. At the end of every day, Bobby and Bobcat snuggle up together. They have toys and treats and lots of new friends, even a camel. Best of all, they have each other.
That's real.
And it is a real story, and here it says, after the storm, like thousands of others, the two Bobbies lost their family and everything dear to them when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. After they came to live with Melinda and Gus Gus, their veterinarian discovered debris and grit deep inside Bobcat's ears. His right eardrum was broken. Did Bobby snatch Bobcat from the dirty floodwaters that had filled New Orleans? No one will ever know. But it is very likely that a blind cat like Bobcat could have not made it out without Bobby's protection. In turn, Bobcat's friendship may have made Bobby stronger and given her a reason to go on. Bobby and Bobcat survived Hurricane Katrina. They did it by lending each other a paw. And this is the real picture of them. The other ones were illustrations, and this is a real picture of them.
Okay, boys and girls, show your
Right.
appreciation.